November 2017. Thank you for joining us on Capitalk 100.4 FM, leading the conversation. It is a Monday, so we are in our dad panel this afternoon. And in the panel, we're asking the question that we've been discussing all morning. And the question is, as a modern and progressive parent, are you still expecting Roora for your daughter, and why? And in addition to that, are you raising your sons to expect to pay Roora one day? And this is a discussion that's been raging all morning, and many messages have come in. So our dad panel has to be, very quick on their feet today, responding to the things that all of you have been saying. And if you want to also take part in this discussion, you can catch us on Facebook. The discussion is live on Facebook. Just search for @Capitalk FM, and you can follow the discussion there as well. So on our panel today, we have two dads. We have Tafadzwa Mkoi, Coach Taf. You will know him, familiar voice to Capitalk. And then in addition to that, we have Tererai Makwiramiti, who's joining us live from the UK, and he will be weighing in on the discussion as well. So I encourage you to send in your questions, your comments. Our dads are going to respond to some of the things that you've been saying. Hopefully we can get to a point at the end of this discussion around 1 o'clock today where we have, an agreement perhaps, or we just agree to disagree. It's one of those topics today. So we encourage you to continue listening to Capitalk 100.4 FM, Zimbabwe's first and only commercial talk radio station, leading the conversation.
Ukama Ubuhlobo, Family Talk on the Capital Crunch. An honest look into the joys, blood, sweat and tears that shape family relations and impact society.
Thank you for joining us on Ukama Ubuhlobo Family Talk. It is the Dad Panel, and in the Dad Panel today we're asking that question around whether, progressive parents, people who are modern, who've traveled the world and seen other cultures, are you still expecting Roora for your daughter, and why? And if you're raising boys, are you expecting them to pay Roora one day? And as I said, I'm joined in the studio by Coach Tafadzwa Mkoi. Good afternoon to you, Coach.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
And also, on the line, we're joined by Tererai Makwiramiti. Afternoon, Tererai.
Afternoon, Penny. How you doing?
I'm great, thank you. Thank you for joining us all the way from the UK. So the two of you are dads. Taf is in the studio, and you've heard the question. We're discussing the issue of both of you are quite progressive and modern dads, and we're asking about that interplay between our culture and modernization, and whether we still want to hold on to some of these practices. So before we go into what people have been saying to us here in the studio, I'd like to hear from you, Tererai. What's your view on this one? Are you raising daughters, or are you raising sons, or both?
I've got both. I've got a son and two daughters.
Okay, so we want to hear...
Sorry, carry on.
So we want to hear from you then. Are you expecting Roora from your daughters, and also will you be raising your sons to expect to pay Roora one day?
I am, in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
How can I put it? Because we're talking about being progressive. Right?
Yeah.
So progressiveness requires thought. So we shouldn't be doing tradition for tradition's sake.
Sure.
So if we're going to be progressive and modern and moving forward, we need to be thinking about what we're doing. So I come at this from a different angle, because
okay.
In the traditional sense, because
Sure.
my wife is European.
Mm-hmm.
So European culture, they don't necessarily require it. In fact, it's the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
The father of the bride pays for the wedding in some European cultures.
Sure.
But so I go from principle, being an African and being a Christian, which showing honor and gratitude to the family to the parents of your wife, the woman you're going to spend your life with, the woman you're happy to marry, is fundamental. Honor is fundamental. So I will be raising my son to show that gratitude in whatever way that they can, whether it's the way we do it traditionally, or however is appropriate, because being here in the UK, the UK is quite cosmopolitan. There's people from everywhere. So I can't necessarily transplant my culture, or my son cannot necessarily transplant the Shona culture to the situation he's stepping into. But I expect him to show honor and gratitude.
Right.
And I expect my son-in-laws, my future son-in-laws, to show gratitude and to show honor and to show that they're capable of taking care of my daughter.
Right.
So that might not look the same way as we do it traditionally in Zimbabwe, but there's ways to do so.
Okay.
That's my answer.
That's a great perspective, and it's also interesting that you're, bringing the discussion based on your own experience of not having to have done it because of the family that you married into. Let's hear from Coach Taff, his views on this particular one. I know you're raising girls.
I got 2 girls and 2 boys.
You've got 2 girls and 2 boys.
I got 2 boys and 2 girls.
So what's your view on this one?
Well, I think it depends who they marry.
Okay.
If my daughters decide to marry a foreigner, chances are he's definitely going to pay.
Okay.
Yeah, for the fun of it. Let's get
so you're just going
about
to
it.
make this
so
person
that they understand our culture. It's an issue of them understanding our culture.
Mm-hmm.
My mentor has got 2 daughters, and both of them married by Africans. One of them is a Zimbabwean, and they didn't pay lobola.
Sure.
And I sat down with him to understand his thought process, which is very interesting. And so now I'm beginning to be more and more sold to the idea that if my daughters are against it, to be okay.
Okay.
So I'm going to have this discussion with my daughters and say, guys, this is what we do as our culture. What is your view? I have found that many a time people misuse this opportunity, and that's where the relationships begin to disintegrate right there because of the expenses and the way it's just done. We're supposed to be honoring, it's in a sense it's denigrating the mukwasha.
Sure.
And so I've got a bit of a concern there. For my boys, again, depends who they marry, but I'm definitely preparing them because I've got no control over that one. I only have control over my daughters. So my boys definitely have to prepare themselves to pay lobola. But what would be interesting for me is I'm more inclined to the idea that if we are not going to standardize our lobolas as a country, for example, I think it would be important for us to just say lobola is $10,000 full stop, and then we know it's 10,000 to 5,000 or something like that,
or 500 to 1,000,
whatever the amount is. But what I'd like to see happen, based on what I was talking about, is that I would like to see a situation where, if I'm going to do that to my son-in-law, I'm going to probably say to him the equivalent. He must probably buy some land, come to me and show me the piece of land with my daughter's name and his name on it, and then that shows me that he's doing something.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, it's a huge expense. I'm honored because you've thought my daughter is marriage material.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's an interesting one, and I want to start getting into the messages that people have been sending in, and I want to hear both of your opinions. A servant has sent in a message, and he's saying marriage is a covenant, and every covenant has to have a symbolic attachment to it. And when one pays, it's a sign of an agreement, whether it be the Roora or the white wedding. So I guess by what the both of you have said, you probably agree with servant to say there's that commitment between the two, and there needs to be something that changes hands to show the commitment. Tererai, what do you think of that?
Yeah, in principle, definitely. The issue is the practice. The issue is how people do it. So, they brought the word covenant, so I imagine they're coming from a biblical point of view.
Sure.
So my first biblical reference is like Isaac, for example, when he married Rebecca. Initially, gifts were given to Rebecca first,
yes,
and then to Rebecca's family.
Yes.
So, and then everything else happened after that. So that's an example there. So I'm in agreement. The issue becomes when the father-in-law, the father of the bride, is being extortionate. You know, and when people fail to complete the payment of Roora because it's so big. It's so huge,
yeah,
and it's ridiculous. And then it binds the new married couple, because marriage is hard enough. The first 5-7 years, the first few years are difficult at the best of times. Let alone if you're indebted to your own parents, because they're not parents to both of you. They're like the in-laws to the husband, but they're both your parents. So to enter into marriage, which is difficult for its own reasons, and then to have this binding thing over both shoulders, to essentially enter into marriage bankrupt, is ridiculous. And
that's such an important. It's an important point you're raising there, because a lot of people are saying the culture in itself has nothing wrong with it, but it's the practice. And someone raised a point, and I'll find the message, but it's linked to this message from Jacob, which is saying, back in the day, someone raised the point to say Roora munaingounza maybe badza kana kuti mbudzi kana kuti mombe, just to show that, you know, this was a token of appreciation. But someone else is coming in to say that was the economy of the time. Perhaps if we translate and see the value of that badza in today's culture, it may be the same amount as, I don't know, a small car, or do you know what I mean? So it's about the culture itself evolving to match up with where we are economically. Coach Taff?
So I don't quite agree with Servant and his point of view. The covenant is not with a third party. The covenant is between myself and my bride. So the groom and the bride. I think that those are the ones that must exchange covenant elements, so to say. If you go deeper into the Bible, I'm not a pastor, but you know, you would see there was exchange of swords, belts. There's just a whole lot of things, and then there was a whole ceremony around that thing. And I think that I'm in agreement with that point as a covenant between bride and groom, but there's no covenant between the groom and the father-in-law. All right, so this is a different thing altogether. And this concept of appreciation, especially because I've got 2 boys and 2 girls, I appreciate all boys zangu there.
And that's an important point, because someone else wrote and said, you keep talking about your daughters and the value of investment in your children. What about sons? And there's been an investment there. Why is no one giving anything to the parents? And so someone was saying, if we are to change the Roora system, it should change in that we're adding the requirement of something to be given to the man's family as well. Right, so just to bring our discussions in, there's someone who's joined us on Facebook, and this is Abigail Tagwire. Thank you for your message. Abigail is saying, Mombe yangu yeu maindi noida ini. I'm proud of my culture. Nothing wrong at all with that. And Blessing is coming in and saying, okay. So people are weighing in on this discussion. And then on Twitter, we have Alton Mwinga, who's saying lobola is good, but it's abuse and unintended, because of the abuse and the untenable criticism due to the growing secular influences like greed and liberalism is the problem.
Look, I think kana uchida mombe yako umai waida, I think you should get it.
Yeah.
It's just that if the mother of my children say no, it's okay, then it should be okay. I don't think that we should continue to impose because we know it was done before. We've seen the ills of how people have misused this, and also and the pain that the children go through when they are going through this whole process. I mean, it takes away at least a year of them being together, just planning to raise these monies. And is that what we want? Maybe it's a good thing, because we're teaching both of them to work. Oh, then again, there's a question: should they both contribute
to the Roora? Because it's unheard of. Hey, if the woman is contributing, but we're hearing of many couples where they realize the guy can't raise it himself, and so sometimes the woman is paying for it herself.
Absolutely,
because she wants to get married.
Paying for emancipation.
What a paradox!
Is what's happening.
So there's
and I'm sorry, I just thought I'd mention about Mombeo Mai, because I was having this conversation with my mom, and she mentioned like how sometimes depending on the family, but Mombeo Mai doesn't even go to the mother; it goes to her parents, and then it's supposed to breed for her family before she even gets it.
Yes.
So sometimes it even bypasses the mother. So what has she gained from that? What honor? She's just bypassed in the whole process. So it continues to be particularly patriarchal. And so on one hand you're selling your daughter, and then the gift that's meant to honor your wife is not honoring your wife.
I love that you just said that, terrorize selling your daughter, and you're going to get uproar for saying that.
Absolutely.
But I want to bring...
No, but that's what happens.
I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. So there's someone who's brought out an interesting perspective on this one, and I want to hear from both of you about it. And this is a person who's saying, if Roora is banned, I don't know if we've gotten to that point yet, but anyway, if Roora is banned, should women continue to use their husband's surnames? There are cases of couples who have opted to have their children use their mother's surname instead of their father's. And I think this question is pointing to the inherent patriarchy that's involved in this whole setup, because
Right.
this gift of appreciation has gone across to the other side of the family, and there's this sense of ownership, this sense
Yeah.
of, I mean, no one wants to own up to it, but this sense of I've paid and I've bought, I've purchased, and now this person is mine. And in addition to that, they'll take on my name and so on and so forth. Terry, what do you think of that?
An interesting one. Because, like, with I remember having this conversation with my wife actually, whether she wanted to have a double barrel surname, for example, and she wasn't particularly in favor of it, so she's taken Makura Music as her surname, and especially with having having mixed race children who are, because my wife is from the Czech Republic, I'm from Zimbabwe, we're in the UK. So they have a particularly weird upbringing because they're not from where they are in both directions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So with them having a double barrel surname, for example, it points to where they're from, and people can say, "Oh, where are you from?" So on and so forth. It's easier to ground them in who they are.
And grounding is such an important thing.
And grounding is important. So it is a big thing, and for me as a man, it's humbling to have my wife release her name and to say she's coming under my name and under my family. It's sort of it makes me realize how much more of a responsibility I have to honor her and to live up to that.
That's
because she's so partnering, but then she's partnering in a supportive sense.
Yeah.
And she's giving up her in a sense she's giving up her inheritance to a point. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
that's
that
true.
means that I need to not only earn double. In some way, I need to make sure that her sacrifice, in a sense, is worth it.
Yeah.
So yeah, as I consider myself like the leading partner, so I need to bear the brunt. I need to have I need to take the weight in the relationship, and as such, so it means that her honoring me by taking my name is worth it.
Right.
You get where I'm coming from?
No, I get it. So I want to go through a few messages. Coach Taff, are you burning to say something?
Well, I'm not for banning, but I'm definitely for standardization.
Okay.
And in terms of, the surname, I don't really mind. She can keep her surname if she wants. It's not a big issue. But I think that, if I'm going to continue paying lobola, I may need to lobby the parliament to say that the laws must then say these children are definitely mine if anything happens.
Oh, I see.
We mustn't even go and try and talk about custody. Custody must be automatic.
If you're paying.
If my sons are paying lobola, the children are theirs.
Theirs. Okay, so let's go through some of these messages and then we can hear from you guys. It says, Vanatejara vanungoda mariavo, because at times when a guy fails to pay or reach a certain amount, he will not be allowed to take his wife until he pays up. I think fathers should just be easy on Wakwasha because nowadays many girls are eloping because Roora is now becoming a barrier to relationships. And then earlier I had said, if this Roora thing is really a token of appreciation, why shouldn't people just be passing on maybe a packet of biltong or whatever is your favorite drink, one little thing, just to show appreciation? And so someone is saying, now I understand your analogy of the packet of biltong, because it's all about a token that you as a parent can appreciate as Roora for your daughter. There is no standard payment for Roora anyway. And so the exorbitant amounts that we're hearing people charging are really plucked out of their imagination and maybe based on what they need in the home, and they think this young person can pay up for those things. Another message has come in and says the Bible says a woman is a helper. She is there to assist her husband to mold a God-fearing family. She is not there to detect and rubber stamp how things must be done. That's when, out of anger, women are told that you were purchased. And they're told that because perhaps they are not fitting into the role that they should be in. And this is Tafachibanda in Budiriro says, inindi charoora hangu aspa nauye 50-50 apa ndo pane nyaya ko murume sei achizonzi abvise pfuma isi tine same value kana zvakadaro tobvisirana tese otorega tese. So either you're paying some I'm paying some, or we don't do it at all. And that's Tafi in Budiriro. And he's just pointing to the fact that we keep talking about the value of the woman and her value, but there's also value of the men. I'll go through one more message and then you guys can respond. This is saying relatives get involved in the Roora negotiations in order to ensure that the girl's parents save face by not being directly involved in the negotiations. Badza was very valuable in the olden days and symbolized a future and food security for the family. It was not just a simple token, it was actually worth something. Coach Taff?
Well, so is Gejo. I mean, so shall we therefore value it with a tractor?
Yeah.
I don't know. Very, very interesting. So the first one was it's now become a barrier to relationships. I totally agree. I think the exorbitant prices are unbelievable. It being a token, and I think that is important to look at it from a point of view of a token. Now, what is interesting is that when Atete will go and investigate my possible wealth or my assumed wealth because of my relationship with my dad, and they're going to charge me based on what they believe I am worth. Others will come and then charge because you've got a degree or something like that. Now, I think that's taking away the whole element and about it being a token.
Yes.
If it's going to be a token,
Because now there's valuation going into
there's
it.
valuations going in. The wife as a helper, so she's purchased. I disagree. You know, I'm a little bit modern, but no, she's bringing a lot of value to my family. She's agreeing to marry into this family with all the issues going on. Man, I think she's. I was raised by a single mom, so I think there's a whole value in women that, in actual fact, is being lowered because of how they're being commoditized, if I could say that. Then finally, Tafa was talking about both of us have got value. Yes, I sort of agree with Tererai, is that there is some honor in the man. If you're able, you're saying that I'm able to provide. Okay, but allow me to provide according to my means, not according to your assumed needs.
Wow, that's really good. Tererai?
First thing that comes to mind is he who finds a wife finds a good thing.
Sure.
Right? That's in Proverbs somewhere. So, and suddenly I don't know where I'm going with that. That was just on the top of my
I think that's even a great place to end that. That's enough. But I see the point you're making.
Yeah. Oh, but in terms of partnership, this is a key point, because this is then a lifelong thing. It's not just a Roora and then the wedding and then it's all done. We have to continue forward. And people talk about various dynamics, and they only talk about them in theory. They don't talk about the practicality of what will happen, because when you have children as a couple, the wife has to go on maternity.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's extended because sometimes things happen in terms of health, in terms of sometimes postnatal depression. So these kinds of things can happen. Therefore, it's important for the man to show, especially Roora, in being able to pay it. It shows that you're able to provide, right? In such situations. But then on the flip side, I'm raising my daughters to be strong and independent.
To provide for themselves. Yeah.
To provide for themselves. And then when they enter into this 50-50 partnership, if her husband happens to fall ill, get injured, any number of things can happen. She can also stand because they're, like we established earlier, now in a covenant. So she's able to stand and provide for the family because she has to in that situation. And I'm not raising my daughters to go and be kept women.
Yeah.
I'm raising them to be partners.
Yeah.
So they need to be able to stand on their own to bring a complete oneness to the situation.
And I think this whole issue of fathers of men as provider is is an interesting concept, and I don't know if it's one that we can totally run away from, even in this age of modernization. And so I just want to remind our listeners, you're listening to Ukama Obuhlobo Family Talk here on the Capital Crunch with me, Penny Pangeti. It's the Dad Panel. I have Tafadzo Mkoyi in the studio, as well as Tererai Makwiramiti on the line, and we're discussing the question, are you as progressive parents still expecting Roora for your daughters, and why? And if you're raising sons, are you expecting them to pay, or teaching them to expect to pay Roora a day in the future? And this conversation is live on Facebook. Just search for us at Capital FM on Facebook, and you can weigh in on that discussion. And you can also send in your messages right here into the studio. The number is 0717 777 Goodwin Mashongera. Thank you for your message. You're texting from Masasa Park. You say, by paying lobola, it culturally means the bridegroom is now part and parcel of the bride's family. Now Roora isunga wirirano, or a memorandum of understanding. This means the two families are now one. Saka Roora remains an important thing. Let's go to more of your messages. Douglas, you say, nesuo vakwasha vanowana tinatwo we go kwana tezvara kunoroora nebhutu rakazara mari. Unonzwa kuti abva apedza zvese kuroora hakuperi manyemwe iwawo ndo anouraya Roora. That's Douglas. Hanzi kusaroorwa hakuzi chituko. Kune zvimwewo zvituko kana zvimwe zvituko zvatinotaura uchiti nhasi waroorwa apa mangwana pamwe kurambana kunowanikwa asi kusava rwiyo. And this is referring to that question of, someone sent in a message to us earlier saying vanhu vanotaura kuti Roora ngaichibanwa, it's because ivo havana kuroorwa, vakambororwa here, and we're asking kuti sei kusaroorwa chiri chituko. And there's another message here that's saying there is nothing outdated about Roora comparatively. It's like saying the Bible is outdated. It's the predatory behavior that should be contained and not the culture itself. Thank you for that message. Okay, this one we'll give it a miss because we're continuing on the issue of women's promiscuity, which I don't think is quite linked to what we're discussing. And then Garai Moyo is in Harare, and he says, I know of a young man who went to Roora and he was charged $17,000, Rusambo Chete, excluding other bits and pieces. He and his entourage left silently, and that was the end of the relationship with the girl. Coach Taff?
Yeah, it's very sad. I think I've heard many situations like that, and I've also been part of the negotiation. And sometimes we actually get to that stage where we say, Asha, do you think this is really worth it? It's really painful for the Mukwasha. However, I think I'm slowly getting to a place where I have got something, a solid place I can hold on to.
Okay.
Is to say that I agree, if you don't pay for something, you won't value it. Or if you don't invest in something, you won't value it.
Sure.
Okay. However, does this therefore explain why Roora don't value Wanamwene, because there was nothing that was said? We're not going there. We're not going there. But I think it's a very good discussion we should have another day, Penny, because Wakwasha Wajinji.
I think you and Tererai can have this discussion on your own.
And I see Wakwasha Wajinji. They want to about Chilemekezo, but anyway, again, it's another story.
Coach.
And then I think the rest was clear. I think Manyemwe and all of that. I think if you've got, you've got. The people must accept it as a token, and whether it's paid now or over a number of years, ultimately it's a token. But yeah, Garai Moyo Ataranye 17,000. I've witnessed that many times. It happens.
But this is the thing: if the guy can afford 17,000, then is it a problem? I mean, if he can afford it, then he can pay it, right?
Yeah, but
Tererai, what do you think?
Wow. I think it's an issue of principle. I think it's an issue of principle. It's not about gaining profit. If we remember that it's a token of appreciation.
Yeah.
So and sometimes it shouldn't be the case of like setting a value, saying I want this much. It should be, what have you brought? It should be a case of the onus should be on groom to say, this is what I'm bringing, to show honor. And obviously, if it's an insult, then you say, Shamwa, sort yourself out.
Yeah, I mean, if someone is coming with a packet of biltong, like I said, and you know he can afford a packet of biltong, I don't know how you would know, But then maybe then that could be interpreted as an insult. Abigail's joining us on Facebook Live, and she says, our identity is paramount to withhold, but it should not be used greedily. We have our roles as spouses. Men will tend to abuse a wife if it's too much. If too much Roora is charged, then perhaps a man will think this is my opportunity to, you're my commodity. I can treat you whichever way you please, whichever way I please. Mrs. Kazembe in Mount Pleasant says, yes, Roora rakanaka asipfuma inovhiswa ngaive wo reasonable kwete kukuvadza mukwasha achazoda kuchengeta mudzimai anozoda here kuchengeta mudzimai wacho kana vabereki ivavo kana achinge achadya mari isingaiti. That's an important point to say. We often treat the day of the Roora as though it's a day in isolation, but it's the beginning of a long-term relationship. And if Maroa mun paspet soka on that day, and maybe but what is that going to mean for your relationship in the future? Robson.
Exactly, and sorry if I just jump in, again, practical things. So as you age as parents, you're going to depend more and more on your children.
Sure.
So if you've set up a bad seed by extortionate Roora, there won't be that desire to take care of you. Sometimes by either party, either by your son-in-law or by your daughter, because you've made life hard for them.
Yeah.
And as a parent, you want to, at each stage, you want to set up your son or your daughter you want to set up a launch pad for them in every situation. So if you're, again, having them enter to marriage bankrupt, essentially, or just struggling because of how much they had to pay, you've done a disservice to your children.
Yeah. And I've often even heard daughters saying they quite resent the way their parents treated, their loved one when they came to pay Roora, and they almost looked at them in a different light. Feeling as though I'm a commodity. All of the investment that they made in me was because they wanted to get something out of it. Robson says, let Roora be a token of appreciation, and in fact, the Mukwasha will be extending his thanks to you for keeping his wife up to that point. And it's not really to make the wife's family rich overnight. Anatejara, they've become a menace, especially mukadzi wangu akafa ndisina kupedza kubhadhara. Too much to mosha. Hanzi Mukwasha imombe haipere kukamiwa. That's someone coming in as well. This is Mushambi, and he's saying, think about this hypothetical scenario. Assuming the two of you, Mkomana and Mskana, agree to negate the feelings and or blessings of either their families with regard to the payment of Roora, and consequently these family members stay away from interacting with both of you. The question is, how does it feel? An honest answer here is yes. You may have to bear it in the early stage of your marriage, but I vouch for you, you'll feel the heat eventually and you'll regret the move. So this is a person saying perhaps both of you decide you're now not going to get the family's blessing, but can you really sustain a relationship with the family members once you've chosen to do away with the culture that they think is important? Jazz in Harare says, I think people are losing the plot here, being overtaken by culture change because of Western influences, such as equal rights for women. And Proverbs 18 verse 22, Terera, you were mentioning this one, he who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor with the Lord. Roora payment by the groom ensures that he treasures his wife. I don't know if it ensures it, and it gives good standing to the wife themselves. I am for Roora, I have sons and will definitely want my sons to pay. So there's someone there who's mentioning, the Roora is an indication, of course, that the person is valuing their person. But of course, we are seeing now many, many stories of people using it as the reason that they mistreat a person in the marriage. Yeah. And so perhaps the value is not actually in the things, but in the people and the relationships you're forming. Coach Tav?
Well, I agree 100%. It's all about relationships at the end of the day, and I like that whole concept. I think it was Mushambi, was it, that they have to release their daughter, or both parents have to release them with a blessing, and that interaction must always be there. So I definitely support. That's why earlier on I said that if the mother of my kids say, listen, I want this, and if that's how she's going to bless the kids, they must go with a blessing. But there's a point. I agree with Robson. Yeah, we mustn't use this as a profiteering, get rich overnight kind of scheme. And Jazz was talking about the Western influences, which is something I agree with. Now, there's a point that I wanted to drive at. What we do in our Zimbabwean culture right now, unless it changed a few days ago, is that we ask for Roora. And when we've paid our Roora, we're going to be asked immediately, when is going to be your wedding. We are not giving you the bride until you've had a wedding. And then after that, they're expecting that there's going to be a baby who's going to come. And suddenly they're asking me, why am I still renting a property? All those are costs. Roora cost, wedding cost, baby and taking care of my furniture cost. Now you want me to buy a house, yet I've got all these debts that I've accumulated. And so this is why I said maybe I would discuss with my kids and say, you know what, sure. And then we know that I'm setting them up for success, not for failure.
Okay. There's a message that's come in. I'm trying to see who this is. This is David. And David is saying, marriage did not start with Zimbabweans, neither did it start with Africans, Europeans or Asians or Americans, not even by any human being. Marriage, on the contrary, started with God. Whether you want to pay Roora or not, that will be your choice. The rest of humanity, which was God's creation, do pay Roora according to their tradition and culture. And Tererai was mentioning that he didn't need to, but you perhaps had to buy a ring and so on, and that's your way of showing that appreciation. This is what distinguishes...
Yeah, no, I did buy gifts for my in-laws.
Oh, you did? Okay.
I did. I didn't have to, but I did.
But you did it anyway. Yeah, and he continues to say, Roora has nothing to do with gain, but with dignity of the human species that was created by God. There are other cultures which do not pay Roora. That is their own choice, whoever they are. But those who are human will pay Roora for that reason and dignity and obedience to the originator of marriage. Then I love this statement. I want your response to this one. He says, my daughter will be paid for, not because I need money or mombe. My son will pay. Not because we have the money or mombe, but only because we are human and we do what God requires us to do. We are not animals. So he says, if you're wanting to do away with this culture, you're doing away with the thing that distinguishes us from just animals roaming the earth.
That comment said God. I don't know where God comes in terms of Roora. That would be something that I'd really like to learn.
Okay.
I think this is a culture that we have developed initially. I think the important thing was, and again, I'm prepared to learn this. I'm not an authority on what the Bible says about Roora, but I think it was once again a token of appreciation. And so to appreciate someone is important.
And in addition to that, the argument that, God originated marriage and we do it because God says it depends on your belief system. Because what basis are you making that argument on? If you're making that argument for someone who believes in the same thing that you do, then that's understandable.
Because we have to go straight to the Garden of Eden, isn't it?
Of course. But if I don't even believe that the garden existed and
Absolutely.
Adam and Eve are a figment of someone's imagination, then that's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got one more message that I want to read, and then I want the both of you to weigh in, and then we can close our discussion for this afternoon. This says, if we want to follow our culture on Roora, then we should stick to what our culture dictates. Mixing our culture with Western culture is like mixing oil and water. Those things don't work together. What do you think about that? The dynamism of culture and whether we should be mixing Western culture and our culture. Coach Taff?
Well, I think that ultimately I'm a product of both the Western culture and the African culture. So I think that everybody must make their own conscious decision. And whatever blend of Roora they decide on, it's their call.
And Tererai?
I think that culture is a transient thing.
Sure.
It changes over time. So like what I said at the beginning, if we're talking about being progressive, we have to think about what we're doing and why we're doing it and the origins of things. Otherwise, be tradition for tradition's sake, we start to be regressive, and then we have situations like we have now. So the oil and water thing is nonsensical because if you're entering, at the end of the day, like with any marriage, whether you're both of the same culture or you're different cultures, you enter into it and you compromise and you meet in the middle. Because even within the Zimbabwean culture, kind of, if you come from different clans, there'll be little differences in the way you approach things. So it's only at a larger scale, but we're different from animals. We're human beings. We can think and we can compromise. So the oil and the water thing, no, culture is transient, and because we can think and because we can exchange ideas and we grow and we progress, it can work. So let's not be stuck in old ways for the sake of it.
Yeah. Thank you, Tererai, and thank you so much for taking time out to join us on the Dad Panel. Again, I loved hearing your opinions, and I think we'll be hearing from you again.
Now you're welcome. Call me anytime.
Have a great day. And just as we close off, linking to what Terai was just saying, is someone on Facebook. This is Erwin Tatenda, and he's saying Mukwasha should show commitment that he will be able to raise and keep a family. Equally said that Kumashingok is generally more expensive than other places. So it's alluding to what Terai was mentioning there, that in different cultures, different tribes, people do different things, and you may want to shop around if you find yourself in that situation. So many thanks for all of you who joined us on Facebook in this discussion. After the news, I'm going to try and get through all of the messages that you've been sending, so we feel we can bring this issue to a proper conclusion. But for now, you're listening to Capital 100.4 FM, leading the conversation. The time now is 1 o'clock. It's time for the main news with Patience Chiwa.